So today we're going to look at section 11.1, which is talking about probability in simple experiments. Now, before we get started, we need to go over a couple of definitions, and then you can pause the video and write down the definitions, and then I will go over some examples of these, the things that I'm about to define. So the first definition is of an experiment. And the experiment is the act of making an observation or taking a measurement. And we'll look at some examples of experiments in a second. Then the next definition is outcome. And the outcome is one of the possible things that can occur as a result of an experiment. And then the last definition is sample space. And a sample space is a set of all possible outcomes of the experiment. All right? So those are our definitions. So now let's look at a couple of experiments. So let's say that my experiment is flipping a coin. Now, the outcomes that you can have is either it turns up heads or it turns up tails. And so the sample space let me make sure you have all the definitions. All right, the sample space for this would be the set heads or tails, and usually it's written as a set. All right, so now you have, if you weren't able to get all of the definition written down before, now you have the definition of experiment, outcome, and sample space. So if you need to pause the video now, pause it and get those definitions down. All right. So that's one type of experiment, because when you flip a coin, it either turns up heads or it turns up tails. So those are your two outcomes. And so your sample space is heads or tails. Now the next thing that we're going to talk about, the next type of experiment that we're going to do, is we're going to talk about rolling a die. Now this is how you say the single form of dice, okay? So here I have a die, and notice you can have a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or a 6 come up. So my outcomes when I roll a single die would be a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. And so my sample space would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it has 6 elements in that set, where this one only has 2 elements in it. All right, so this one has 2 elements in the set. This one has 6 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, the third type of experiment that they use a lot in probability is drawing a card from a regular deck of 52 cards. Now, I'm not going to write out the whole sample space, but this is in your book. So we're going to talk a little bit about this sample space. So here are the possible answers that you can get, and let me not confuse you. Let me put it like this, okay? So here is your sample space for when you are picking a card. Notice that you can have an ace, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, a 8, a 9, a 10, a jack, a queen, or a king of diamonds. Or you can have those same numbers for hearts, the same numbers for spades, and the same numbers for clubs. Okay, so I'm going to write down a few bits of information that you need to know about cards. So, first of all, there are 13 diamonds, 13 hearts, 13 spades, and 13 clubs. Now these are the red cards, and these are the black cards. All right, and so we're going to need to know that there are 26 red cards and 26 black cards. And altogether, there are 52 different cards. Okay? Also, you should know that there are 3 of each type of face card. So the face cards, let me pull this back over. The face cards are the Jack, the Queen, and the King. So there are 3 face cards that are diamonds, 3 that are hearts, 3 that are spades, and 3 that are clubs. So there are 12 face cards altogether. Also notice in the sample space that there are 4 2s, and there are 4 3s, and there are 4 4s. One is a diamond, one is a heart, one is a spade, one is a club. So for each number, there is 4 of them. So 4 for each number, or of each card number. Okay? And so those are the things that you're going to need to know, because we're going to be asking about probabilities of those things. And so this is, these are the sample spaces that we're going to be looking at. Now there are a couple of others that I wanted to kind of go over too, and these can change up, but we'll look at specific ones. And so like this, you can have a spinner. So this would be another type of experiment that we could do, is we could spin the spinner. So spin a spinner. And notice in this particular one, you have 1 blue, 1 red, 1 green, and 1 yellow. And so my outcomes could either be I land on blue or red, or I could land on yellow, or I could land on green. And so if I put this in a set, it would be blue, red, yellow, green. And a lot of times you'll see them using just the letters for each of the colors instead of writing out the word blue. So that would be my sample space. Okay. Another kind of experiment that you'll see is, let me get to it in the book so that you can see it. Is when you are pulling marbles out of a jar. So here, notice that when I'm looking at these marbles in the jar, I have 1 red, 1 green, 1 yellow, and 1 white. And you can have different numbers of marbles and different color marbles, but for this particular example, for this experiment, it's marbles in a jar. And in this case, we had a red, a green, a yellow, and a white. So my sample space would be red, green, yellow, and white. And so that's the basics of experiments that we run in probability, and how you determine what the outcomes are and how you determine what the sample space is. So we're going to come and revisit these, and now we're going to look at the probabilities of each of these things. And so I'm going to do that on another video because we're already 10 minutes into this one. So we'll go ahead and do the second part on another page with another video.